Let's take a look at today's headlines. Let's give it a glance. Pope, world at war, but religion not to blame. Well, look who's receiving the worst of it. It's Europe. The current big headline on Drudge Report is Summer of Terror. Euro Summer of Terror. And we also see that British churches are on alert. French authorities press to explain priest killer's release. Media to stop publishing photos and names of terrorists. Germany on edge. Suitcase bomb rocks migrant office near Nuremberg. Mall evacuated as police hunt Algerian suspect. Refugee rapes 79-year-old at cemetery. Citizens revolt. Knives replacing guns in deadly attacks. The first headline there at the top of the page says, Pope, the world is at war, but religion is not to blame. Well, it is to blame, but it's the lack of it. Because let me tell you something, and I'm going to read this comment first. This will set the stage for what I'm about to say. I got this comment here on the comments of Common Filth Radio episode 99. It says, Religitards have normalized believing crazy garbage so much that this idiot thinks people takes memes seriously. You do take them seriously, which is why you buy statues of golden frogs with money. Did you buy it ironically? Oh, I only spent money ironically. You do take it seriously, which is why you're mad that I'm telling you that you take it seriously. You have no reason to believe yourself, and I have no reason to believe you, because you are a liar. You called me a religitard. You said I believe crazy garbage. So much that I think that, and you called me an idiot, so much that I think that people take memes seriously. You do take them seriously, because you left this comment. It brought it out of you. The words I said, it shook loose that demon, and out it came in the comments here. You are mad at me because I know that you take them seriously, and you're embarrassed that you do, which is why you hide yourself under the plausible deniability of irony. I'm just doing it ironically. That's what you say. That's what you say to lessen the amount of shame you feel. You preemptively make fun of yourself with the expectation that because you make fun of yourself by saying, like, look how silly I am, I'm doing it ironically, that nobody else will make fun of you. Because you understand that if somebody else says it, somebody else says the truth about the stupid shit you do and believe, you'll feel even worse about yourself, which is what you're seeing here. You dismiss your the diagnosis of your condition by calling me a religitard. Which brings me to my next point. I have received tens of thousands of comments in the 2 years that I've been doing this. Thousands of emails, thousands of messages through Reddit, Facebook, Twitter. And those who are most hostile towards me because I believe in God. I believe in God's word. I do my very best to obey it. I trust the word of God. I trust the Holy Bible. And those who are most hostile towards me for trusting God's word, for believing in God, are white people, members of my own tribe. I rarely ever get comments from blacks or Hispanics or Asians calling me a Christ cuck, a religitard. Whites are the most hostile towards God. They're the most hostile towards the idea that there is a creator that holds everybody to the same standard. They're hostile to the idea that they are not God. And this is why. This is why they are hostile. This is why they hate people who believe in God. This is why they hate God. Because they think they are entitled to be God themselves. Whites say to themselves, we invented so many things. Well, I'd say we're so prosperous, more than anybody. They worship their wealth. They think their own creations are their religion. A lot of people make fun of African Christianity for being nothing more than Santeria. I think white people Christianity is nothing more than paganism. Or, at worse, pantheism. Which, by the way, is what the priest in France was. The priest in France who was beheaded by ISIS. He's a pantheist. He's on an interfaith panel. Shucking and jiving for false gods. A friend of mine pointed out that church burnings occur pretty frequently in Europe. Probably more frequently than any other continent. Don't quote me on that, but it seems to happen there pretty frequently. So that happens. And what happens now? God inflicts his wrath upon the wicked by using the wicked in the Islamic State. God knows the European heart better than anybody else. He understands that most Europeans don't understand incentives beyond what takes place in the temporal realm. He knows their heart better than anybody else, and he knows that the European man and woman doesn't have a soul. Oh, sure, they mind their P's and Q's a little bit better. They commit less crimes, but that's proof that they only understand temporal consequences. So, God meets our understanding. He does. Which is why he inflicts his wrath upon those who have no soul, who only understand blood, guts, pain, because Europeans are the most pleasure-seeking, novelty-seeking people on the planet. They are incapable of understanding that maintaining a good, healthy soul is a good incentive because they have none. So the Pope says the world at war, but religion is not to blame. Well, yes and no. Yes, in that the Islamic State, it's in the name, Islam. The perpetrators of these attacks are of the Islamic State. But their victims are completely godless, which is why they are receiving the wrath of God via the Islamic State. Because among genuinely God-fearing people, population who believes in God more than it doesn't, they've avoided God's wrath at least to this extent. You have an entire continent of blasphemers, of heretics, of those that worship false gods. And the false god is themselves. And they violate God's law. Europeans promote abominations, which is what we're about to get into. And they still don't believe. They still don't believe that you get what you put out. What goes around comes around. What you put in, you get out. Input, output. You violate God's law, you get God's wrath. And it has happened so many times. So many examples of what happens when you go against God. When you violate his law, you receive punishment. And despite this, you still get angry at people who tell you that you're retarded for worshiping cartoon frogs. Again, I'll read that comment from a white guy. Religiotards have normalized believing crazy garbage so much that this idiot thinks people takes memes seriously. Again, if you didn't take it seriously, you'd move on. You wouldn't think anything of it. You know you take it seriously and you're ashamed of it. You feel that shame because somebody says you take it seriously and that's stupid. Somebody tells you, you take internet memes seriously. After all, why would you spend money on it if you weren't? If you weren't serious, you wouldn't spend money on it. You would not spend your time and energy on it if you didn't take it seriously. If you took it ironically, you just leave it at that. If it was just a big joke to you, you'd leave it at that. But you're angry that somebody sees it for what it is. And you feel ashamed because of that. But you know what? You do feel shame. And that means there's hope for you yet. It's almost unbearable to see how broken your fellow man is and to deal with it on a daily basis. It is. But you need to know it's broken before you can fix it. And some of you do know, which is why you get angry at me for calling you broken. But you don't fix it. And you never will. A friend of mine sent this to me. And hopefully this will explain, convey my feelings towards Europe. I don't give a fuck about Europe. And here's why. Here is why. Here's why I don't care. If I scroll through, click, here it is. Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't save it, but other things. How about this? This gender non-conforming Swedish preschool would make Justin V. Bond proud. Now I have to go to my other thing, because that was different from what I was wanting to talk about. But yeah, that fits too. This is Germany. This is Germany for you. This is Europe for you. Adult toys, oral and anal sex, part of German school education program targeting homophobia. This comes from RT.com. Anal sex practices, sadomasochism, and adult sex toys should become known to German peoples through theatrical performance lectures or workshops according to teaching materials promoted by a state-supported anti-homophobia project. 14-year-olds in North Rhine-Westphalia, the most populous state in Germany, may come across school classes making them aware of anal sex, sadomasochism, and the use of sex toys, including dildos, as early as in the next school year, according to Die Welt newspaper. And this was published just last month. This is a pretty new story. It all comes as a part of an offbeat project called School of Diversity, jointly run by the Regional Education Ministry and a number of LGBT advocacy groups to reflect on tabooed but very relevant themes for teenagers. Oh, I'm sure. Europe loves nothing more than turning its children into depraved queers, as well as to promote diversity and tolerance in German society. Proposed for school children in Year 7, the project seeks to introduce classes dealing with things like premature ejaculation, orgasms, sadomasochism, and even darkrooms, places usually found in nightclubs, gay bathhouses, or sex clubs where group intercourse between different or same sexes can take place. The School of Diversity lectures and workshops would also give the pupils a chance to explore different identity possibilities, as well as taste new experience, particularly by mimicking oral sex and using dildos or vagina simulators in theatrical performances. Now, why do you suppose that queers target children so frequently? Kids get sicker pretty easily. I mean, relatively. Kids have an immune system that is not as developed. And this ties in with the gay germ theory, which, as I put the pieces together by observing how the homosexual transmits its virus socially, when is queer propaganda most prevalent? During the summer months. Why? In the northern hemisphere, it's hotter, warmer. When things are warm, it's easier to transmit diseases. Germs can more easily reproduce. Combine that with a child's weakened immune system, well, mimetic warfare is pretty similar to viral warfare. And a lot of people out there, they say, so what? Kids need to learn about this. It didn't hurt me. I'm very happy. I'm very happy with my prolapsed rectum and meth addiction. Everything has a function. Your lungs take in air so that you can breathe. Your stomach digests food so that you can get the nutrients from that food. If you are a man, you have a penis so that you can ejaculate semen into a woman's vagina and impregnate her. If you have a vagina, you have it so that you can take seed and have children. It'll fertilize your egg. That is the function. And our sexual attractions, those of us who are well adjusted, is directed towards that which has the most potential for life. So for a well-adjusted woman, she is attracted to men. For a well-adjusted man, he is attracted to women. They look into each other's eyes and they see the future. The only way it can be nurtured. And here's where the idiots will say, well, what about the OC can't reproduce? You don't know that just by looking at somebody. You can't tell just by looking at a lady that her eggs are dried up. Can't tell by looking at a guy that he's shooting blanks. Notice what I said there, the potential of it. It's not a guarantee because sex doesn't always result in pregnancy. Even if you do what needs to be done in order to get pregnant. Doesn't happen all the time. But the potential of life still remains. And this is why homosexuality, even if they're the most monogamous, even though they have a far different definition of monogamy than us cisheads do, even if they're just like, oh, I'm only gonna fuck your ass, even if they enter into such an agreement, it's still dysfunctional, because they're using their life-giving abilities towards that which is dead. The most unclean part of the body, where you expel waste, they're fixated upon. And don't give me that bullshit about, well, there's some that just suck each other's dicks. You know that ingesting human semen is the equivalent to ingesting raw human blood? But you didn't know that, did you? And not to mention all the hormonal disruptions guzzling jizz causes. So any way you slice it, it is a dysfunction. Imagine how you would react to a school offering a class on how to be schizophrenic. Explore your schizophrenic identity. Think about how you'd react to that. That is the exact way you should react to classes offering lessons on sadomasochism and anal sex. Why are Europeans so dedicated to the sodomite cause? Why? There's no reason for it. There is no good reason. Oh, sure. You might say, well, we like them and we fetishize them, therefore, okay, that's a reason, but it's a bad reason. They contribute nothing to the long-term health of your society. They're a drain, given that every European society seems to have a healthcare system that devolves into a single-payer system. From every conceivable angle, homophilia, fetishizing the homosexual sodomite cause, is a bad bet. And Europeans use not 1 point of their high IQs to figure that out, to come to that conclusion. Why? If you cannot explain it through worldly means, you have to explain it through spiritual means. The fetishization of the sodomite amongst the European people is a curse from God. There is not one thing in the European lexicon of invention that it has not turned into a pagan religion, a pagan god. Materialism is the white man's albatross. So God gives us over to that albatross. Gives us over to a reprobate mind. Look at the European pattern of behavior. We spend more time avoiding the consequences of our deleterious actions than avoiding the actions that lead to the consequences in the first place. We spend a ridiculous amount of money researching cures and treatments for preventable diseases. The amount of fixation on glorifying sodomy, exalting the sodomite, is tremendous. It's mind-boggling. These are from last year. A's closer girlfriend buying tickets to fill stands for LGBT Pride Night, the Oakland A's Major League Baseball team. What else? Girl Scouts reach out to trans children. Start troop in Gay Pride Center. So there's another one. How about... this one. Cops arrest woman 58 for battering female domestic partner with dildo. This is what the Girl Scouts are promoting. Oh yeah, 3/4 of adult lesbians overweight or obese. Hundreds of sex toys dangling from power lines in Portland. Here's another headline. I'm a transgender dad in a gay relationship who breastfeeds his baby boy. Oh, here we go. In a spree of gay-on-gay violence not seen since Nazi Germany, one homosexual man, Gaten Dugas, commonly known as Patient Zero, was directly responsible for killing over 1,000 homosexual men by deliberately infecting them with the AIDS virus. Indirectly, he may be responsible for tens of thousands, eventually perhaps hundreds of thousands of AIDS deaths. One of the first known AIDS carriers, Dugas was known as Patient Zero because he caused so many of the earliest infections. Even after his diagnosis, Dugas justified his continued sodomy with the excuse that he was free to do whatever he wanted, with his own body. Even when he was in the final stages of AIDS, he would have anonymous sex with men in homosexual bathhouses, then show his sexual partners his purple Kaposi sarcoma blotches saying, "Gay cancer. Maybe you'll get it." White guy. Singer Morrissey accuses male San Francisco airport officer of sexually assaulting him at security checkpoint. Quote, "Groped my penis and testicles," unquote. Hold on, here's another funny fact about Morrissey, singer of the Smiths. Here we go. This is back from 2013, and I think poor Morrissey, was groped by a TSA agent back in 2015. But 2 years before that, he said, Morrissey, quote, "If more men were homosexual, there would be no wars," unquote. And then he got molested by a homo TSA agent. Yeah, poetry. More than he's capable of. Oh, here we go. Another one. Meet Vietnam's gay power couple. U.S. ambassador and his husband exporting. Yeah, there you go. Target removes gender labels from kids sections after complaints. What else? Oh, and then this happened last year and it's happening again. Fire among most destructive in California history. And you think God's still not inflicting his wrath. And it's happening again. California wildfires. Yeah. 2 raging California wildfires grow, killing 1 and prompting closure in Los Padres National Forest. So, yeah, 2 days ago, California wildfires evacuee. It was raining fire from the sky. Major wildfires hit Southern and Central California. Same thing happened last year. Doritos goes gay and other foods that have shown support for the LGBT community. Here's a good comment I got, I don't know when, but it says, I was the guy from the first comment you responded to. I am from the Netherlands. By watching Fox News, I know a lot of conservative Americans think we are basically the devil's playground, killing our elders and murdering the unborn. After 5 years of college, I have never heard of trigger warnings, safe spaces, and gender fluidity outside of English YouTube land. The amount of abortions, drug use, STDs, and single teen mothers are all way lower in the Netherlands than in your country, and we don't kill the elderly. No, the elderly just kill themselves. Why is it that your arguably more repressed, religious, and conservative country score worse on almost all points you seem to address in these podcasts? Why does, for example, sex education seem to work for us, but you don't want any part of it? We do have sex education. It's everywhere, and it's mandatory. And despite all the warnings of what will happen, despite all of the, you can still have sex and be safe, despite all of that, people are still reckless. Education is a cure for nothing. You Dutch faggot. You know, I'm quarter Dutch. I have a grandmother who's 100% Dutch. I am so glad I am removed from the motherland, fatherland, whatever you want to call it. No, let's call it the gender non-specific land. That's what Europe is. I'm so glad. It's like, I thank God. Thank God. Thank you, God, for removing me from the modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. What else? Oh, this is nice. Look good, feel good. We design clothes that express community through personal style. 10% of profits go to scholarships for LGBTQ youth. UWM offers voice feminization therapy to help students live their gender identities. Oh, here, this is a good one. An update kind of thing from a blog called In Love with My Brother. It says, sorry for the lack of recent posts, and I will get around to replying to your messages. Me and my brother have been kicked out of our family home because our mother caught us kissing over the weekend. Luckily, our friend is letting us stay. Our father hasn't said anything negative, but my mom, being the negative social butterfly she is, has told our whole family, and I'm sure as hell they aren't going to keep it a family secret. Right now, we're looking for a short-term rental house to stay until we move up to Sydney, Australia. Yes, Anglo supremacy. It's the world's cancer. We spread out like cancer. What else? A page called Stop Being a Plebe says, I unfortunately recently unliked a page that usually has some good posts, but recently all it's been complaining about is gays should have no rights. Let me be clear on something. If you have a dick and want to marry someone with a dick, I do not give any single quarter of a fuck. This is your traditionalists. They have like an ancient bust, like one of those statues at the head. Yep, you're a true patrician there. Truly our natural aristocracy. What else? What else do I have? Oh, let's check Drudge. Pope falls over. I already tweeted about that. Brazil readies for worst as terror threat hangs over Olympics. Yeah, there you go. The Olympics are a testament to globalist decadence, and they will get their comeuppance for ignoring the horrible, horrible problems that Brazil faces on a daily basis. Decadent. Study. Secondhand pot smoke worse than cigarettes. Yeah, what is that about? People are like, oh, why are you making fun? I said something about a certain ideological movement that's about to be dead in a couple of months. I said that they have the same opinions as dipshit 19-year-old community college students. Now, I was once a 19-year-old community college student, so I am very familiar with the personality types that such an environment attracts. I think the exact term I used was community college, 19-year-old community college pothead. See, I was at once a 19-year-old community college student, but I've never used marijuana. Very proud to say that. And if this will load, something else I wanted to talk about with regard to marijuana. Heavy cannabis use does have a negative effect on your brain in regions linked to learning and memory. So there you go, it's not harmless. Fuck off. And speaking of young people, I'm a part of a bunch of Facebook groups for observation's sake to see what the youngins are up to. You know, I'm still young myself, but there are people younger than me, and I want to know what's on their mind. I want to know what my future is, what I'm going to have to deal with, what I'm going to have to talk about on the show in the future. And the subject of circumcision came up in one of these groups, right? And they're saying, "Ooh, what do you think of circumcision?" And they say that, well, you shouldn't do it when they're a baby because they don't have a choice. They can't bring themselves to say, like cutting off a part of yourself, you know, it doesn't need to be done. Because that argument could then be extended towards, well, you know, I know you feel like a woman, but, you know, you shouldn't. You shouldn't become a woman. You shouldn't mutilate yourself. You know, you don't have a vagina. You weren't born with one. You'll never have one. You'll just have some weird flesh pouch that the doctors sew into you. You know, that you can make that argument against transgenderism, just as you can make it against circumcision. Except with circumcision, you're only taking off the foreskin. And I get it, there are botched circumcisions. You can destroy the penis if you're not careful, but the penis still retains its function. After all, Jews still reproduce. There's still Jews on planet Earth. Their penis is still functioning. It's impossible to maintain sanity when your idea of truth is entirely dependent on those who say it's okay. Your perception of what is true and what's not is entirely dependent on what other people think, on what other people consent to. I know nobody's ever told you this before, but if somebody makes a bad decision, it's a bad decision. The mere presence of choice does not make choices good choices. Who in our society combats these destructive attitudes so prevalent in our culture? Because it's not just young people. They seem to have it more than others, this attitude about consent and how consent makes everything okay no matter what it is. Very few people are fighting against odious behaviors and attitudes so prevalent in our culture. And very few are listening. So speak up. If there are enough of us, we will force them to listen. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later.